what is usually held as a celebration in February? Yes, it is. But it's not the most important thing in February. What is? Black History Month. Okay, let's call it Black History Month. No problem. Now, you said that you've never seen a Negro Anthology book, right? Then where are you getting your Black history from?
Research it and write it down.
Researching where? Who wrote the books that you're researching in? Well, what I'm getting at, do you understand the question, Brandon?
Yes, sir.
What are we talking about?
Where are we getting our information on Black history?
Where are you getting your information?
Textbooks. That's where I started.
But you've never read a Negro Anthology.
No.
So I'm suggesting that there's going to be some problems with your concept of Black history.
Negro Anthology would be the name of the book, or just that's the name of?
You just told me that an anthology.
Collection.
Yes.
I found some Black history books and I found
So it's Jet
the
magazine?
authors.
All right. What did you find?
Martin Luther King made his own autobiography.
So that's a book that they're selling during Black History Month.
Frederick Douglass made his own.
Made his own autobiography. What was Frederick Douglass's autobiography called?
It was called Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave.
All right, now, how about this one? Frederick Douglass did not live long enough to learn some things like how to not consider himself a slave. And if he did, no one seems to position his language so that we can see that he had changed his thoughts. But he didn't want anyone to be this thing called a slave, right? Right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Have you read Narrative of Frederick Douglass? Or Frederick Douglass narratives?
No, sir. But
Why not?
I did a project on it.
Good, but have you read his narratives?
Yes, sir.
Why not?
Because I don't
On what?
have it.
All right. Who is that man on the wall up there?
I don't know.
Daniel, who's that man on the wall up there?
Alan Locke.
How do you know? How did you know that? How do you know?
It says it on the.
Go up there and point to where it says it.
Alan Locke. I still don't know who that is. Oh, that's what they say.
Good. So you saw that. How did you see it?
Got them young eyes.
Okay. Have you ever seen the name Alan Locke before?
No, sir.
So Miss Brown, she hasn't introduced you to Alan Locke? I bet you if you tell her that she hasn't done that, I bet you she's going to be upset. I bet you she has, Louis. But at the same time, what we've got to figure out is why it's not registering. James, who was Alan Locke?
So Rhodes Scholar.
Who?
African American Rhodes Scholar. 1907.
Dr. Locke. Where did he teach?
I would assume Rhodes. He's a Rhodes
No.
Scholar.
Rhodes Scholars have to go to England.
Howard.
He taught at Howard.
Okay.
That's right, he taught at Howard.
The New Negro.
What is the New Negro about?
Bach is a guest editor of a periodical survey graphic titled Harlem Mecca of the New Negro.
The New Negro was, in fact, did become, for a while, a small magazine.
So this was a Negro Digest.
That was a digest. Founder of the Chicago Defender?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, here's my point. James, where did you tell me that you get your black history from?
We research it on Wikipedia. Write it down.
You research it where?
Wikipedia.
Wikipedia. You research black history from Wikipedia.
Well, we get a lesson and then we look up the person and then write about him or her.
I understand. That's for your class, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Who wrote about him or him or her in Wikipedia?
Who wrote about him in Wikipedia?
Anybody.
Oh.
When you look up something about black history on Wikipedia, who's writing about it?
We don't know.
You don't?
No.
Well, who writes about black history in your school book?
I guess you can look at the publishing and trace it back, but I don't do all.
Well, here's my point.
Texas.
Here's my point. Every day, when you want to find out what's happening in Memphis, what do you look at?
The news.
The newspaper.
News of the newspaper.
Okay, no problem. What newspaper do you look at?
I don't look at the newspaper. I look at the news.
On TV, you're talking about.
Right.
Well, the Chicago Defender really was around before TV actually got rolling. And most people would get all their information from the newspapers. Now, the information about the Negro or black communities or colored communities weren't in your big newspapers. Where did you find them? Where did you find the information?
In the black newspapers.
In the colored, Negro, black newspapers. Chicago Defender was one of the biggest. It was one of the biggest. As a matter of fact, the owners of the Chicago Defender eventually started the Tri-State Defender. Now, if you want some news about something going on in these communities, where would you get that news from?
In the paper.
From the Chicago Defender. But y'all don't know anything about the Chicago Defender. So my question is, how do you know so much about black history? So let's go down to the next newspaper.
You said that he wasn't the only owner of the Chicago Defender? Robert Abbott?
Sinstack Abbott.
He wasn't the only one, though?
He wasn't the only one what?
Owner.
Now, as far as I know, originally he was the only owner of the Chicago Defender.
Okay.
Eventually on the Tri-State Defender also. All right? It became a Sinstack paper, but by that time, a whole bunch of other things were happening, and different people were owning different things.
Autobiography from Malcolm X, right there.
Well, where I didn't see it. Oh, now, what that is just a picture of a child, and the child is actually falling asleep on top of some books that hopefully the child is going to read. James, come up here and read to us what the names of these books are.
Malcolm X.
What'd you say?
At the top, can you break that one out? The first one is The Souls of Black Folk.
By what person? Can you see who it is? All right, Souls of Black Folks is by W.B. Du Bois, or who we all call Du Bois. All right? What's the next one?
Malcolm
James?
X.
What?
Malcolm X.
Who does it say the author is?
Alex Haley.
So Alex Haley is actually the person who wrote it. Are you following me? All right. So that's the book that you were supposed to be reading, right?
If I'm not mistaken, his mom said she had that book for him.
Daniel, have you read it yet? I know y'all got other things to do. Y'all aren't really paying attention. What?
Malcolm X?
Yeah.
No, sir.
Why not?
Because I don't have a book.
Oh, Donovan?
I've never heard of it. I've heard
You've
of it.
never heard of it.
I never read it.
All right. James, what's next?
I can't read that.
The plays you, Kennedy, Zaire started and did so well in the color section.
A Raisin in the Sun?
Who was the author? Yes. Who's the author?
Alright,
Good, 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 good. What's next?
All About Love.
Who was that? Her name should be Bell Hooks.
Bell.
What's next?
Can't read
The collected poetry of Nikki Giovanni.
So that's a digest.
Who was Nikki Giovanni, James? Huh? Good. Well, how do you know that?
that. Because we did a lesson and we wrote down poems and she was doing poems.
Good, good, good. And these different abstracts that you're doing will allow you to learn something. What's next?
Can't read that.
Asada.
Let's talk about
Is
this
the book before Asada? It is.
This is Ayo.
Their eyes were watching God.
Zora Neale Hurston. The eyes were watching God. Who wrote Asada?
Asayo?
That's the name of the book, Asada.
You can't read.
Okay.
Asada
Alright.
Shakur.
Asada Shakur.
Yeah, Asada Shakur is what it's called. Her real name is Joanna Chesmeyer. But the author of the book is what you need to learn. All right, who's the bottom one? On the bottom. The one on the bottom?
Asada.
No, there's not one below that?
No, there's one more between there.
Purple one.
Yeah, it's and still I ride.
I know you know and still who that's by.
And still I ride.
Oh yeah.
What's her name? That's Maya Angelou. Maya Angelou. Good. All right, going down, Brother Lewis, to the next post. I'm looking for something in particular. All right, those are the sisters that are part of the whole Native American, Black American, amalgamation group of people like y'all that y'all weren't admitting until just recently. Now all of a sudden y'all talking about some indigenous shit like y'all know about it and everything. Just crazy, man. Going down.
We wasn't slaves, Dr. Black.
I understand. I've never suggested that you were.
I know.
Y'all tried to tell me that that's what y'all were.
Yeah, I know.
That little girl up above there is a little Japanese girl, not Chinese girl, Vietnamese girl or something. And what I'm suggesting in the article is that that's what I remember all colored children being able to do.
Apparently,
They could make it happen. But now all of a sudden, since they become African Americans, first black children, then African American children, they've forgotten how to do this stuff. So going down. These new ones. Microwave McDonald's.
Yeah.
Now this brother, what's his name?
James Bird.
Junior.
What about James Byrd Jr.? Tell me about it.
He got drugged down the Texas road by some crackers.
And that's just recently. That's in the 90s. Pulled his head off.
They pulled his head off?
It's called lynching.
Yeah.
But yet, on some of this Black History thing, they say lynching stopped in some.
In 1919.
Some old nonsense. Go on down. We're looking for something. James got to read this in a while. What is this?
Old Lily.
This is introduction to the story.
First
I
wife.
put the articles. Yeah, I put the articles where people could get to it and read the information, unless they're afraid.
Right.
No, they're afraid if they're depending on belief
That's
to
right.
guide them.
That's right.
Rock
But
People
I'm trying to
Home
put
Foundation.
everything in a position where you can acquire knowledge. You know, what is that? That's County Cullinan.
That's right.
Color.
Uh-huh. He was Du Bois' cousin,
Okay.
County Cullinan. Where are you now?
Warm excited about his 3 years.
That's County Cullinan's poem. Hey, black child. Now, if a 3-year-old can do this, I know these Negroes sitting behind me can do this.
I'm writing it down now.
3-year-old could do what?
What?
Are you talking about recite that poem?
Yeah.
Yeah, that little girl.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
See, I don't understand how people who are calling themselves African Americans today, I don't understand how they can get to be 11, 12, 13 years old and they can't do things with their brains.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me. Well, what do you got here? What is this? Oh, that's where, go in here. Try to see if you can get in. That's where we're going. You see somewhere to get in? You can click.
Yeah, I'm getting in. I gotta shut it on.
I know when y'all go through the site, y'all don't do any of this stuff. You don't really bother to go in and read, research, and learn.
I used to.
You used to,
I used to.
but I thought you wanted to learn.
I do.
I can't tell you say you used to.
You talking about learn or red pill?
I'm talking about any of it.
I thought you were talking about red pill. I still do. I'll learn and learn.
Good. Oh, they can't find it, so since they can't find it, what's that down there? It says search what? Is it red pill?
I think that has to do with Google.
So just go straight to red pill, Lewis, and go to the blogs, and what you're looking for is called the Seed of Civil Rights.
Civil rights.
Now, James, go in the blogs. Yeah, there you go. Give me the beginning of civil rights. When's it start? You're looking for, go into search and put the seed of civil rights. I'm waiting. Maybe Brother Brandon can help you. You want to tell him, Brandon?
54.
54 is what they tell you in the textbooks that you get at school.
Brown versus Board of Education.
It's the beginning of civil rights.
That's what I would say. That would be my answer.
I know, but it wouldn't be right. It's just the information that they want you to think based on how the system is set up. What's the end of civil rights?
Martin Luther King assassination.
68.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. Well, you see the civil rights, Lewis?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Does it start? Going down, see if it starts. If not, we got to click on it so it comes up.
I guess what Lyndon B. Johnson passing those bills or something?
Ah, so you don't really know, do you?
No, I don't.
But how do we know anything about Black history? And we don't know any of this. I don't understand.
I thought I knew a little something.
That's right.
talk about sex rights.
So we want to know without knowing.
I mean, when you say civil rights, you do mean civil rights pertaining to so-called black people, right?
Is that civil rights?
I'm saying, well, no, I think civil rights probably has something to do with all people too. Before, wouldn't civil rights be the American Revolution and all?
Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
So why do people think that it has to do with so-called black people?
Right.
Sounds like somebody's been miseducated and undereducated, but they actually think they know.
Right.
Somebody out
Okay.
there. All right, you see where it says "See the Civil Rights"? Put your finger on top of it to see if you can click on it. It's either that one or it's right above there at the top. Good, good, good. Let's see what his answers are.
Okay.
All right. Peace, Lord. All right.
You got
Can
some
you
questions for me? Yes.
Yeah. So we first start. I'm gonna ask you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. When did civil rights start?
Civil rights, or what people speak of as the civil rights?
Whatever people speak of, but I'm interested in.
The dates?
Yeah. When did it start?
Well, I can't give you definite dates, but I know it was before the so-called civil rights era. I know a lot, like pretty much when King was killed, a lot of things they fought for, like fair voting rights and things was already won, and it was acts put in place. So,
Okay.
so
Is that it? Do you have it, Lewis?
I got it.
James,
Sir?
come and read this. Because you're going to have to learn how to do this. Is that Kim?
Yeah.
Hey, Kim.
So,
Now, can you read it from the wall, or do you need to look at Mr. Brown's computer? You can see it?
Yes, sir.
All right, well, let's go.
Where do you want me to
You said what?
Where do you want me to stop?
Where would you start when you look at something like that? Where are you supposed to start?
Right back.
I meant stop.
15 minutes.
What?
I meant stop.
If need be,
No, I don't want you to stop.
sir,
man that laptop from until I get back.
gotcha.
15 minutes.
Do you need to look at the screen on the laptop?
No, sir.
All right, so let's go.
Nothing.
Stop. That's not where you start.
what is that on the screen?
No one come look over here.
Come over here and look.
It's much clearer. See.
Oh, that's something you wrote.
A long time ago. See, I don't know why everybody wants to compete. I didn't just start this. Been doing this quite a while.
You grew to it.
I know, Dr.
Yeah. All right, what does it say, James?
The seat of civil rights.
Stop. What does that mean?
The start of civil rights.
The start of civil rights. Good. Good. Now, what was your answer about when civil rights started?
54 Brown versus Board of Education.
All right. And most people will say that. Why are they saying that? Why did you say that?
I thought that was the beginning of
Why you thought that?
But nothing stays the same.
school.
You
No,
thought
no,
that was
no,
the
no.
beginning?
School,
Brown versus Board of
That's
Education.
how people are being taught. And they actually think that they know what they're talking about. All right? Read, James.
Nothing stays the same. Everything must change. As years continue, come.
Shape your mouth. Do not just read by running on. All right. Nothing stays the same. Everything must change. All right, James? You got it? Do it again.
Nothing stays the same. Everything must change.
All right.
As seasons continue to come and go, full circle, it is incumbent
Incumbent
upon all thinking individuals to learn from past experiences. In other words, while it is not certain that the weather will be the same this year as last, there is a possibility that if it happened before, it just might happen again. This thought is part of the fundamental constitution of all.
All right, so now, James, tell me about what you just read. What is that saying? What is that projecting?
Talking about how things coming up
Yeah.
and evolve.
Yes.
Karma?
And what?
Karma?
Karma could be thought of as the product of change, yeah. Everything changes. Everything must change. Nothing stays the same. Everything goes full circle. It's incumbent upon thinking individuals to do what?
Incumbent on thinking individuals to learn from past experiences.
All right, now how are we going to learn from past experiences if we don't know anything about the past? So, what I'm trying to get to y'all's attention is there's somebody making sure that y'all don't learn anything about the past. And whatever you learn, you don't have the information correct. Why would they do that, Brandon?
Handicap you?
And why would people want you handicapped, mentally handicapped?
They could take advantage of you.
Well, why would you, if you know that, why would you leave your children in a position to be mentally handicapped?
I'm not.
You don't get it. Everybody keeps saying what you just said. But I'm saying you can't do anything until you know what to do.
Yeah. I think even if knowing, you still have to figure out there's no, unless you run into someone who left the structure of what this looks like to get yourself out of it.
Somebody,
And it's there.
right now, if you're not educating your children, somebody else is educating them. Y'all got y'all a problem. Where are you, James? Are you bored already?
Sensible farmers, as they nurture the land they love, the farmer must never be cognizant of the many complexities related to the force of relative to the force of nature. Tenders of civil rights would do well to follow the example of the farmer.
All right, so what that is suggesting, what that article is suggesting, people that are seriously trying to understand what's going on, having to do with a thing that they're calling civil rights, need to understand what farmers go through every day dealing with nature and land. James, you're not paying attention. You don't have a clue what I'm talking about, do you?
Talking about
Farmers. Okay. Keep going.
because of the past experiences with nature and her power to give and take, Farmer George is extremely careful about where and when he plants his seed.
Somebody back there is not listening to you, James. Who is it?
Donovan,
Why is Donovan not listening to you?
he's twisting in his chair.
Why is he not listening to you is what I'm asking you the question.
You gotta be demanding when you're talking.
Or you got to know what you're doing in order to control a room. So keep on.
Hoping to receive the maximum reward for his effort, the farmer is very vigilant of nature's laws, knowing exactly.
Let me ask you a question. All the people out here running around talking about civil rights, are they vigilant of the laws that are taking place in the territories that they exist in? Similar to how the farmers got to know everything that's going on that land. Are these people actually understanding?
Nope.
All right, keep reading, son.
When to plant the seed. He must also
So who needs to know when to plant the seed? The farmer. Okay, keep going.
He must also aim careful attention to the many factors that are determinants in the environment where the desired culture will germinate.
All right, what's a culture? What's a culture? I hear y'all always talking about culture. Don't you talk about indigenous culture and all the rest of this stuff? What's a culture?
African culture,
What's a culture?
growing.
I hear y'all all talking about black culture and white culture. Is there such a thing as a black culture? Is there such a thing as a white culture?
I thought it was.
A lot of people think that there is. But what does that tell you? When people are thinking things that don't exist, what does that tell you?
They don't know.
It tells you that they're undereducated or miseducated. Keep reading, James.
In consequence, if George plants the seed at the wrong time or wrong place, he will not receive the right benefit of a fruitful harvest. The seed of civil rights is naturally planted in was naturally planted in the fertile ground of the U.S. Constitution. In the original document.
What does that mean?
The seeds of civil rights started with the Constitution.
With using the Constitution as the territory that we would develop a thought in, the seed was planted by creating this Constitution. Now, something had been going on before the Constitution that didn't work, and they had gotten a bad harvest. What was going on before the Constitution?
The Articles of Confederation.
Articles of what?
Confederation.
Articles of Confederation.
You said that didn't work.
Didn't work. If it had worked, you'd still be under it. But you're under what?
The Constitution, supposed.
Because the Articles of Confederation didn't work, they had to come up with new land, new territory, new ground to plant in. So they created a new farm. They created the Constitution of the United States of America. They created the United States of America, another country.
Create
a new farm. I like,
Yeah.
that. I like how you put it.
That's what it is. But I'm not just doing this now. I wrote this years and years ago. Keep going, James.
In the original document known as the draft rights were to be extended to all people.
Known as the what draft rights were to be extended. What was it talking about? In other words, in the original draft that was created called the Constitution, rights were to be extended to all people, and all people were supposed to be equal. Keep going, James.
Were to be extended to all people in an equitable manner. The original Constitution was never to be ratified, and therefore a second draft was cultivated as a compromise.
So what is that saying? What does that mean? That means that you live under now what is called the second draft. The U.S. Constitution. The first draft, when they brought it through Memphis, Tennessee a few years ago on a bus, the first draft had been torn in half. Because when they wrote the first draft, they couldn't agree on it, so it couldn't pass. They couldn't get it ratified. So they tore it up, and they rewrote it. Well, read it again, James, because there's nobody in here to understand you.
The original Constitution was never to be ratified, and therefore a second draft was cultivated as a compromise which ultimately diluted the original intent of natural rights.
That's right, for all people. Now, the original is actually in Washington, D.C., in the Smithsonian. It was put back together, but you see where it had been torn in half. This Constitution that we live under is the second draft. Keep going.
The predecessor.
The what?
Predecessor.
Say the word correctly.
Predecessor.
That's good. Why is it pre? What you have to do is you have to understand at the end of pre is an E. That's a vowel. The next letter is going to be a consonant. Now, what's going to happen is, instead of that being pre, you're going to have to change the sound of that vowel to ed. It's going to have to be ed, so it becomes predecessor. So now, do you know what a predecessor is? So what should you do? So you need to put that down, and you need to get a dictionary and look it up.
You know what pre means? James, you know what pre means? Or pre?
Pre means, well, you don't know what pre or pro mean. So you haven't been doing your prefixes and suffixes, right?
You know what pre means.
Hold on. Daniel,
Sir?
what does pre mean?
Before?
Good.
Yeah.
Good. So, if this means before, and it's pre something, and the word becomes predecessor because of the way English works, and the vowel that now is in the center of R and D, so it changes the sound of the word, and it becomes a predecessor. Right? Did you look it up? Donovan?
Yes.
Do you know what the word means? Do you know what the word that we're dealing with, what it means?
No, sir.
Daniel,
Sir?
are you looking the word up?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. How do you spell it, Daniel?
Predecessor.
All right, look it up and see if that's correct. James, you already got it. What did you say?
No, sir.
So now, this,
Found it.
what do you have? Who's got it?
Predecessor.
Good, good.
It means retire from office more at the keys.
All right, so you don't understand that, so you better keep reading and figure out a way to look at the definitions until you can grasp what it's talking about. In other words, I'm telling all of you, no one is going to teach you, tell you, or anything. You got to learn how to teach yourselves. If you don't, you're going to be in trouble. James, where are you?
Right here, sir.
What's taking so long? Does this, I think you should be at the predecessor of this what?
Civil rights.
Of this civil rights what?
C
Was what?
was the Treaty of Runnymede,
When?
1215 AD.
What does AD mean? You know, I know somebody back there ain't paying attention. How do I know? Cause what? Cause what?
18. I forgot.
Y'all think it's cute to forget, huh?
Predecessor means to go.
Predecessor means what?
To go.
To go where?
It says to go in the etymology.
Good, but now you better figure out what to go in etymology is dealing with. Right now, we're dealing with the Treaty of Runnymede. When?
1215 AD.
What does AD mean? After what? After what?
Do it.
I don't know.
After a dumbass nigga gets tired of being there.
Don't do it. So you saying that the Treaty of Runnymede was the seed of the American, the U.S. Constitution?
Yeah.
The Magna Carta.
Yeah.
That's a long time ago.
That's right. That's right. So now you might start to get ready to understand that somebody is truly miseducating the people that you say you're relative to. They, in turn, are running around with each other, lying to each other about they're really talking about something, when in fact they don't have a clue. They don't understand.
Yeah.
And if we're going to really understand this thing, you better go back. Now, wait a minute now. Did I just make something up in order to address what's going on around here right now?
I hope not.
When did I write this?
Probably 09.
I need it.
Long before 09. This was written back in the no, it wasn't the 90s. Was it the 90s? Yeah, I think it was the 90s. But it addresses something that we're going through right now.
It's gonna happen over and over and over again.
And it's going to keep happening until we start figuring some things out, Brandon. James?
I'm trying to figure out the difference between the first Constitution and the second Constitution.
You talking about the first draft and the second draft?
Yes, sir.
In the first draft, Thomas Jefferson had actually written about all men being equal, which you find in the Declaration of Independence. We find these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. So he wrote into the Constitution when they were putting it together that all men would be equal. There were a group of colonies becoming states that weren't going for that. They said their slaves could not be equal. And women could not be equal.
Wow.
But if you would keep reading, you would see what it is talking about. James?
Sir.
I'm waiting.
Yeah.
All right.
So you know what a predecessor is? No? You say no? Oh.
When King John of England gave the right of privilege through the Magna Carta
Magna Carta.
to what is known as the English people. The story of Magna Carta is absolutely fascinating. The king who was loosing the war of rebellion, which would have resulted in
What rebellion are we talking about?
I don't know.
This is called the English Revolution, and it's where you find the poem Hudibras that is actually written about this event.
Dang, what my pen at?
I thought Hudibras was like
Please, thank you.
1500s.
That's what this is.
Oh, okay.
What's the date, Daniel? Tell me now, James. What's the date, James?
1580.
What is it?
Yeah, the Magna Carta.
1215 A.D. It's not far from 15. It's a couple of hundred years later you talking about.
Yeah.
Why did you think that this was 1215? Because that's when the Magna Carta comes about. 1215 A.D.
Right, I'm saying.
Did y'all ever tell me what A.D. means, James?
No.
Oh, somebody started to tell me something about after the death or something, didn't they?
After
Hello?
ADHD.
What?
He just popped about the
AD.
back.
We lost one. He's gone?
Yeah,
Yes.
he wasn't paying attention anyway. He needed to be gone. No, I'm serious.
It was soaking up in his subconscious, Dr. Black.
I
Nah,
was
nah,
going to say, he really, if you ask him something or whatever,
He can
might
repeat what you asked him, but in order to learn,
need to listen.
you have to pay attention. And see, right now, James is hot as a firecracker. But I'm suggesting that if he keeps doing this, he's going to get it. Where are you, James? I'm waiting. Are you lost? Okay, well, fine. Where are you?
The loss of his royal head. The sorry
Who's lost of whose royal head? What king?
Magna Carta,
Magna Carta is a piece of paper.
King John,
King John. And King John did what? Keep going. Because there was a war going on, and the war had to do with the fact that his barons and his barons' villagers or villains were fighting the king's army, and they were winning. Keep reading.
decided on the wise action of giving the people that he called freedom. People what he called freedom. The
So
right of-
King John actually signed what?
Magna Carta.
There's a big picture over at the University of Memphis. It actually shows King John sitting down signing the Magna Carta. The only thing about that is King John could not read nor write.
So, and the Magna Carta
Who really
is
signed?
the forerunner or built as the forerunner, whether it was. or
It's the
not.
forerunner of the U.S.
US
Constitution.
Constitution.
Yes.
See.
And you have to read the article in order to understand what it is saying, because the article came about because we wanted so-called black people to understand about what civil rights is. So they could know what they're doing, because now all they're doing is standing around singing "We Shall Overcome" about some nonsense.
Yeah, but this a bunch of white folks civil rights stuff, Dr. Black.
What are you talking about?
That's what's gonna come up for a lot of black power.
Fine. Then what they've just said is I'm a stupid ass nigga. And what more can you expect?
This ain't got nothing to do with us. This England.
Yeah, well,
How about, I think one of the funniest things information that I've acquired by listening to him over the years, paying attention because I heard him say something. There was how many incidences where white people have said that when they're debating and discussing our so-called freedom, they've said that we would figure it out. Just leave them alone. And then-
it started out with what we're dealing with right now, what James is reading.
Pull up by your own bootstraps.
No,
not pull up by
No.
your literally.
Oh, I
James,
see what you're
James, did you just break off with the fact that we were reading something about the first draft?
that I broke off.
You were reading something about the first draft, right?
I got
Where
torn
you
up.
stopped in what you were reading.
You said how it got torn up, right?
Right.
The first draft, and it became the second draft because Thomas Jefferson was writing in the first draft that all men were created equal. Same that you find in the Declaration of Independence. But they couldn't get the Constitution ratified because some states didn't want to sign a Constitution giving women and so-called slaves equitable rights. So Thomas Paine stepped up. And he said, wait a minute, we don't need to do this. We don't need to argue about this. So they tore up the first draft and they rewrote it. And this is why it is the second draft now. And when they rewrote it, y'all wasn't in it now. You understand?
Didn't Thomas Jefferson write about how so-called Negro people were inferior? And
You're mixing some things up that you don't understand.
Unlock that door, Dave.
He actually wrote in an article called Notes of a Virginia Planter. And he talked about how he did not feel that black people were the same as people that he felt relative to.
And David Walker rebutted it, or he addressed
now
it.
Here's what you get ready to do. David Walker comes a long time later.
Right.
David Walker's not in the same time as Thomas Jefferson.
Okay, you're right.
Benjamin Banneker is.
Okay, right.
Prince Hall is. But this is what you're doing right now is what Negroes do all the time. They take a little bit of abstract information and they mix it all up.
Put it together.
Yeah, they come up with some nonsense. So you don't want to do that. You want to go step by step.
Yeah, you're right.
But the first thing is, James, at some point you've got to get a copy of this where you can read it from looking at it and read it over and over and over until you can teach it in the class. Because we're going to have to ask
teaches you how the country was composed, actually.
how it came together.
In the story, this is brilliant as heck.
And how about this? How about this? Civil rights was what the colonists, who were Englishmen, living in New England, they were fighting the mother country in order to have civil rights. It could not possibly have started in 1954 with a bunch of Negroes walking around talking about we should overcome. That's crazy.
So that's why they.
It starts right here with the Constitution coming into existence, because the Constitution actually now follows the what is a declaration, James?
What's the root of the word declaration? What?
What? Good. He said declare. So what are you doing when you actually pronounce a declaration?
Of independence. You're declaring what? Independence.
Separation. That's right. And wait a minute now, declaration is similar to a proclamation. So the Emancipation Proclamation is just like a declaration. They're not law. All it is a declarative statement, and all this is where you proclaim something.
It's an announcement.
But they're not laws. In order for this to become a law, what did they have to do with the Emancipation Proclamation? What did they have to do, y'all? Because it wasn't a law. It was just a proclamation. What did they have to do?
Make an amendment.
They had to create the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution in order to try to make it a law. 13th, 14th, and the 15th Amendment are all civil rights amendments to the U.S. Constitution. The U.S. Constitution is an act of civil rights where the colonists were fighting against the king, fighting against King George. This was civil rights. When you go through the Constitution, you find a number of activities that are all a history of civil rights, including the creation of the country. For some reason, every time we say civil rights, We have to think about so-called black people.
And it's funny you say that in the same sense of understanding that somewhere in the when the so-called, I guess, settlers or people that was running from England came and they created these declarations and proclamations. Within it, it was saying something about freeing slaves. And then, but if you look at the signatures, it's all, them. So
Where? Where are the signatures?
at the bottom of the page.
You're getting ready to teach a lesson that I taught somebody. Now listen carefully. The U.S. Constitution starts out as the first 7 articles. Once you get to the 7th article, and you get below the 7th article, guess what you see?
Amendment.
You see all the signatures.
Oh, okay, and then the amendments.
You see all the signatures to the Constitution, which says what? That there are only 7 articles. And this is called the de jure Constitution. Everything that is amendment after the 7th article are all de facto of man. Are you following me? So, once it tells you that all of the signers signed right at the 7th article, and it's talking about subjects to the king, that actually tells you that they all knew that they were slaves. That they were slaves. Now, at the same time, there were a lot of them that were hypocrites. They didn't want to be slaves. They wanted them and their sons to be free men, but not the women nor the Africans. They wanted the women and the Africans to all be labor. So that's why it's important to learn about civil rights. Not for this knucklehead nonsense that these fools are talking about. That's got nothing to do with civil rights. So the museum and everything that they're talking about right now about civil rights,
It's a big lie.
is bullshit.
Wow. And you know what's crazy? You wonder why these big name pit high, why these white folks pour into it? They really know what civil rights, they really understand
That's right.
why it, so we looking at
And as long as they control
yeah.
your thoughts about what civil rights is, and they control you, they get free labor.
Good.
Can you dig it? Now you need to actually, this is why I wanted, Carolyn was the one that suggested this.
It was good beat.
Hold on. What she wanted me to do was to recreate a play that I had written years ago,
Okay.
using the kids. And I tried to think through this thing to figure out how to accomplish what she was asking for. I can't do it. But what dawned on me is, wait a minute, you know what we can do? We can take James, and I think that James is brilliant enough, he's smart enough, that he can become Frederick Douglass. Kennedy is Ida B. Wells. When James gets through teaching the children the seed of civil rights and what civil rights actually is, you understand? And when Kennedy learns what it is that she has to do as Ida B. Wells, and she introduces Frederick Douglass, and if James learns Frederick Douglass the way that I want him to learn it, James,
Sir?
tell me what the first thing you're going to say as Frederick Douglass. All right, let me help you. You ready?
Yes, sir.
If there's no struggle,
If there's no struggle,
what?
There is no
Appreciate
She's telling you the next part?
if there's no struggle, there is no
Progress.
progress.
All right, do it again.
If there's no struggle, there's no progress.
If there's no struggle, there is no progress.
If there's no struggle, there is no progress.
Those who profess to favor freedom,
Those who profess the face of freedom
know listen, those who profess to favor freedom
Those who profess to favor freedom
and yet deprecate
and yet deprecate
agitation
agitation
are like men
are like men
who want crops
who want crops
without plowing up the ground.
without plowing up the ground.
Now, you are going to learn that in its entirety. It has, I think, 2 more parts. All right?
So,
Now, it was changed later by A. Philip Randolph. He used it for a speech, but he changed it a little bit. But what A. Philip Randolph said was,
There are no free seats.
at the banquet table of life.
At the what table of life?
Banquet table.
Banquet.
Table of life. And you better get over this thinking that somebody's about to give you something. You got to do some work. But that's what Frederick Douglass was talking about when he said, what, James?
there is no struggle, there is no progress.
If there's no struggle, there is no progress.
Didn't they have to learn that? Didn't they?
They were supposed to learn it.
Somebody learned it though.
Yes, but see, all I'm saying is what we have to do is we've got to quit thinking that just because they can repeat something that they know it. They don't. James,
Sir?
give me the 3rd stanza of For My People.
For my playmates in the clay and dust, the sand of Alabama backyards, playing, baptizing and preaching, and doctor in jail, and soldier in school, and mama and cooking and playoffs, and concert in store, and hair and Miss Chummy and company.
What? Can we have he and Daniel? Daniel, what I was gonna ask is if we can get the 2 of them to engage in a discussion with each other about
Frederick Douglass.
there are no free seats at the banquet table of life versus the first line of Frederick Douglass's.
Good.
It's a little,
But I'm suggesting it right now that what I had come up with from what you asked me to do is that James is going to have to learn how to teach the seed of civil rights to all the children in such a way that they actually start learning something that their parents aren't teaching them. Because if their parents were teaching them, then Brandon and Kedron would know that civil rights did not start in 1954. So if their parents aren't teaching them, that means that the school system are not teaching them.
Most
and,
definitely.
and what I'm trying to suggest is that even though I can see me now in the 8th grade in Walter Robinson's history class, where we had to learn, this series of things, and he had his method of teaching was you learn dates and names. For whatever the reason, King John and the signing of the Magna Carta in 1215 at Runnymede just stays with me. I remember that. I remember it. But what I didn't know, was not taught, ain't had a clue, is about its relationship to the Declaration of Independence.
Or the U.S.
Or
Constitution.
the U.S. Constitution.
Right.
I didn't have a clue until I met.
So none of us are learning these things that we need to learn. What she had asked me to do with the play with the kids, I'm almost thinking it's too difficult for all of the children to become players of the characters that are all in their play.
Have you seen it, Lewis?
All right, let me give you who the characters are.
Tell
You
me
ready?
that
What?
Frederick Douglass convened the reading.
Well, that's what we were talking about, that Frederick Douglass is the convener of the meeting, but that Kennedy would play the part of the one female that's at the meeting. But she would have to explain to the audience, because what I'm trying to explain to you, Carolyn, the audience is not going to be educated about any of this well enough to understand anything that's happening. And so it doesn't make any sense to do that. You can't do it. So if she actually explains the part that Frederick Douglass is playing, and she learns how to actually introduce Frederick Douglass, then what she can do is introduce who the characters are that are at the meeting that Frederick Douglass is convening. Now, Frederick Douglass is an associate of a number of other people at that time that she is alive. Who was alive during the same time that Ida B. Wells is alive?
We just talked about this.
What's her name?
Mary
we just
Church
talked about
Terrell.
her. Mary Church.
Mary Church was one of the people that actually is a founder of the NAACP with Dubois, Trotter, her husband, her father, Robert Church. All right?
Let me get my computer.
Okay. Wait a minute. Ida B. Wells is a contemporary with Trotter and Dubois and Booker T. Washington. They're all in the same time period together. Now we've got to learn and understand what they were all doing when they come together to actually help a group of people that they're all relative to. Are you following me? Mm-hmm. So what she would be doing, rather than us trying to get all the kids to learn the parts of the plays, is she would introduce all the characters who are convening with Frederick Douglass. So William Monroe Trotter is there, comes to this meeting. So he's the contemporary of what person? Who's his partner at the meeting?
W.B. Du Bois.
Dubois. So how did they actually initially come together? What were they doing?
The Niagara movement.
They actually were part of the Niagara movement together. They turn around and they create what? Because they don't think that the Niagara movement is actually doing what they want to do to help so-called black people.
NAACP.
They walk away from the Niagara movement and they create together the NAACP. But they said, these are their words. They said, we must create a militant organization on the behalf of the people that we love. And that's what they created when they created the NAACP. Did you know that
so
when
it started out as a militant organization?
Yes, I'm about to follow up on it. Did you know that they created a paramilitary?
No.
The NAACP started out with a paramilitary group. The paramilitary group, when they left the NAACP, they became the African Blood Brotherhood.
Which I had never heard of until I came to your class.
You ain't never heard about a whole lot of things till you came to my class.
Oh, true, but that's one thing that I definitely never heard of.
Well, if y'all ever really do the work, you would realize not one thing, but a whole bunch of things y'all ain't never heard of.
That's deep. The African Blood Brotherhood
is an extension of the NAACP.
They started out in the NAACP.
That's a dope name.
What?
That's a good name. I like that name.
What?
Blood Brotherhood. I just like African Blood Brotherhood. I like that name.
They were, yes.
The question that comes up for
Sounds
me
rap.
now is, what was their reason for separating?
They left the African Blood Brotherhood left the NAACP for the same reason that William Monroe Trotter left the NAACP. After they got started,
And Trotter must have been more militant than Du Bois.
without a doubt. Matter of fact, Trotter got into a fight with Booker T. Washington at a church in Boston when Booker T. Washington was standing up in front of the old church talking about his business movement. Trotter walked in the door.
Better listen, James, and
Trotter walked in the door. And he told Booker T. Washington to get his handkerchief head ass out of here. And before it was over with, they actually established a fisticuff. They were actually fighting with each other. It had to be broken up. That's how Trotter was. He wasn't playing.
Now
Well-
he's the same one that stole away.
On a ship to
On a
make
ship.
it over to the Paris peace in Versailles, having to do with the end of World War I. And Wilson actually had established this they had started the Secret Service by then. Wilson gave the Secret Service an order to stop Trotter by any means necessary. I'm using Malcolm's term.
For leaving or returning?
No, see, Trotter's passport had been taken away because it got to Wilson that Trotter was on his way to Paris to be at the meeting. Also, Garvey was trying to get to the meeting in Paris. The United States actually caused their passports to be invalid. So they couldn't get out of the country. Trotter stowed away on a ship leaving out of Boston and made a deal with the captain of the ship that, hey, I tell you what, I'll work my way. He could have paid his passage, but he had stowed away. And he actually made an agreement, and the captain even went along and allowed him to do the dishes all the way over to Europe. That's how he got there.
Did you say who his father was?
His father was James Trotter,
Who was
a postmaster general,
postmaster?
one of the
general
first
of the United
postmaster
States?
generals after the Civil War that was an African American or a Negro, a colored person.
And who Monroe Trotter graduated from
Harvard. Graduated from Harvard, but his father had actually established buying real estate all over Massachusetts and the East Coast. And his father was the one that had the money, James, the Postmaster General. And the way he was able to do this, in some kind of way, no one knows how he did it, but coming out of the Civil War, he had money. Nobody knows where it came from, but he had money.
William Trotter's father.
Yeah, James Trotter. He had money, and he was able to start purchasing land, and he bought a lot of property around Boston. When Trotter comes out of school, Trotter had been going to school with one of the Forbes kids at Harvard.
Mm.
Well, the Forbes had already been involved in magazines. Back then, they had large magazines. Trotter became friends with one of the Forbes youngsters. They started a newspaper, magazine, called The Guardian.
Mm.
That was started by William Monroe Trotter and one of the Forbes children.
You had Forbes magazine?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That has something to do with the Guardian that exists today.
Yeah. Yes. Now you've got to be able to understand that there's no way that you or the children that I'm relative to are ever going to be able to learn the kind of history that we're talking about from school. And that's why you have to be real careful with this thing that you keep doing.
Yeah.
You have to be real careful with this because some of the information that I'm sharing, you put every time you do this and you put that stuff out there, guess what I see in a short time? I see idiot shit like what's his name? Jay-Z.
Oh, okay.
He produced a thing on respect for Hillary Clinton. I see shit my stuff coming from people like this little knucklehead. What do y'all call him? Umar Johnson or something.
Yeah.
I see my shit coming from Claude Anderson. And people say, oh, well, that's Dr. Anderson. See, he knows it. No. You see, I know when I'm looking at original thought.
Let me just do this for them so that they can understand what I was trying to get at with the kids and the April 4th event that we're playing. I was suggesting that the kids do an excerpt from this play. But he just said to you, he doesn't see how he can make it fit as he is with me. But, this is what I had mentioned to Joanne already. But anyway, he's come up with a modification.
I think, first of all, like we're sitting here trying to discuss this, and I really thought there was going to be a lot of people here tonight. But I don't care about nobody here. If we are serious about doing this, then that's enough for me, all right? What I'm suggesting is, if we want to understand black history and civil rights, we can take this play and this whole effort about this play that Carolyn wants to do. And with these two children, and that's why I wanted Daniel and all the rest of them to learn what Kennedy and James would be doing so that if anything happens, there'd be backup. And if they're all discussing it, in other words, for James to learn what it is that I want James to learn, he has to learn this well enough to actually be teaching it. He has to learn this well enough to teach Daniel and Donovan. And if he can't make them understand what that's saying and how to do the work for himself, I'm not trying to get anyone to learn based on the way everybody teaches. I'm saying the way a child learns is they have to be actively involved in whatever it is. In other words, if you are actually involved in that, and when you read it, when you hear it, you become a part of it. You're sitting right there at the goddamn table with King John. You actually understand that Jefferson has come up with the first draft of the Constitution and nobody will ratify it. And so Thomas Paine looks at Jefferson and says, you know what? Just don't worry about that. You see, these people, they will understand that right now they're fighting for our freedom. At some point in the future, they're going to have to do the same thing that we're doing, where we're fighting for our freedom. Sooner or later, they're going to have to understand that's what they've got to do for their own freedom. We don't have time to worry about that right now. We got to get this Constitution signed.
Okay, now let me just do this. A little background. We were watching the 1986 Democratic Convention.
How long?
1984.
Not long.
1984, and that was the year that we got married. I just met him. And so we were watching the convention the night that Jesse Jackson spoke the first time. He spoke in 84, he spoke in 88. And that night was just like the night that when Obama spoke. I'm sure
It was magic.
You remember that night.
It was magic.
Anyway, he said to me, he said, I'm so sick of this happening. I'm looking at him like, sick of what? He said, every time one of us steps up, one of us is used to pull that person down or separate from that person. We can't seem to come together and agree on anything.
When
So
Dubois and Booker T. Washington were trying to come together to make something happen, some kind of way, when you were growing up, didn't they teach you that Dubois and Booker T. Washington were angry at each other and they couldn't get along?
That's
And
what I heard.
that's what everybody was taught.
Rivals.
And I can go step by step through history and show you where black folks have come together to do something, time and time again, in some kind of way, before the day is finished. These other folks have come in and they've made that one angry with this one, and everybody realized that they were fighting with each other. They got it where King was supposed to be fighting with Malcolm. What kind of shit is this? See, we can never do anything for our children. I know we can't because I know what happened with me. This is serious. If we want them to understand how to ever get along and work together to do something, man, we got to stop this. Farrakhan and Jesse Jackal had actually come together. What? What is
Y'all
it?
pay attention. He works with Trump with the names and call him
Right.
real names.
You call it
Oh,
Jesse Jackal.
well, that's how he behaved.
This,
That's how he behaved back then.
no, I hear you.
And now I don't.
And Coretta Coconut.
Yeah, I don't.
Let me tell you one of his classics, Calypso Lewis.
Yeah,
See, I,
yeah. I don't really say those kinds of things in my old age, you know.
And
But
in public, I hope you don't.
I don't. But I just see he's recording and stuff like that. I keep trying to tell him he keeps putting stuff like that
No, I don't.
out on the internet.
No, I don't.
You can't do that.
No, I don't. I know better.
Y'all.
But anyway, let me, because we're going to run out of time.
All right.
So he said, he brought up the example, I mean, the notion that Jesse and
Calypso.
Jesse and Minister Farrakhan
Yeah.
had been at odds with each other, not really at odds with each other. The Jews put Jesse in a position to say, remember when Farrakhan supposedly made the statement, you're Jews and you're either dirty religion
Yeah.
or you're gutter religion.
That's right.
At that point, when Jesse announced he was running for president,
That's right.
Farrakhan declared himself the protector of Jesse Jackson.
Sure did.
He said, and you better not harm a hair
Wait a
on his
minute.
brother's
And
head.
they kissed.
I mean, it was really a dramatic moment.
They kissed.
Next thing we know, Farrakhan messes around and says something in public like Jews and their dirty religion or
Right.
Jews and their gutter religion.
Right.
Nobody really knows what the utterance was. But it caused Jesse the Jews to say, Jesse, either you back off of Farrakhan or we're not going to support you
To run for
to
president.
run for president.
That's right.
So Jesse was put in that
And he
position.
came out publicly and said something against
And
Farrakhan.
he had to denounce Farrakhan. Like they tried to get with Barack Obama and the minister of the church.
Right.
What was his name?
Right.
Jeremiah Wright.
Yeah.
And Jeremiah Wright, to his credit, had the good sense to back off
That's
and
right.
don't say another word. He wouldn't give them the satisfaction of
But
coming.
at some point, we have to stop allowing others to create some false narrative in history that gets us to thinking that y'all can't work together. It's always you against you. That's nonsense. There was no between Booker T. Washington and Dubois. There was no fight. There was a fight between Trotter and Washington. There was a real fight. You know, and there was a real confrontation between Dubois and Garvey. But we have to understand this and understand how we're supposed to evolve.
So he put things in a context for me. He said Trotter and
Washington,
Trotter and Booker T.
yeah.
Garvey and
Dubois,
Dubois.
yeah.
And these are the people that he brings into his narrative.
That's right.
These are all the people that are invited. He was saying that historically, we've got to stop doing this. And he was talking about it to me and worrying the hell out of me. So I was like, look, if you feel this strongly about it, just write it down and leave me alone. It's about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I go to bed. And when I wake up, he has written almost 30 pages out of his head. And a lot of people think, well, in order for him to write this piece, he had to have, he had to have some historical notes or something from somewhere, but he didn't. So these are the characters that he invites. The thing is set in Frederick Douglass's parlor, and he invites all of these people to this meeting. A meeting of the minds of deceased leaders of oppressed African and African American people. The major characters are Frederick Douglass, W.B. Du Bois, Booker T. Washington, Ida B. Wells, William Monroe Trotter, Marcus Garvey, Asa Philip Randolph, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, Arthur A. Schomburg, Paul Robeson, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., President John F. Kennedy, Congressman Reverend Adam Clayton Powell, Che Guevara, and Patrice Lumumba. And these are all the people that are invited to the meeting. And also present as one of the characters is a guy by the name of Antoine Forget.
Right.
And he is Douglass's head servant and butler that he had brought with him from Haiti when Frederick
Douglass was the ambassador to Haiti for the United States.
For the United States. So this is the setting. Now, I'm just going to read to you 2 pieces from this play. This is Frederick in his opening remarks. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Frederick Douglass, and I am very concerned about a problem I feel compelled to investigate with the utmost of intensity and devotion. Now, get this. He's writing in the language of how these people would have talked and what they would have said.
And then I've had a Negro ask me, well, how would you know how they talk? I really have. And it's not because I've looked at any videos on YouTube.
No,
I knew how they talked because I have investigated each character, each person over the course of my life. I've wanted to know about these people to the point to where every word that ever was written in any book or magazine, I was trying to find it. Yeah.
Okay, so it says, please, dear people, bear with me as I attempt to unravel some rather complicated confusion that has developed over a short period of time, which if not addressed, could be the beginning of the end of my people. As you are well aware of certain facts about my life, I feel no need to waste time with old speeches, for I am sure with the advancements in public and private education, you all have read them. Through a prayerful petition, I have been allowed to have a few precious moments in order to see if I can be of help in resolving some rather pertinent and most complicated issues. Now is a time when so much depends on clarity. Acuity of thought and vision is essential at this point in time in order to prevent a coming Holocaust. A Holocaust unlike any the world has ever known. In the hope that this may be avoided, I and a few others who I have come to love would like to spend some time with you. The people I am about to introduce are a few of the greatest thinkers that ever drew breath on God's green earth. And then they start to come in one by one. And I thought it was, this is when I was ready to get my hat and go. I was reading this and I was saying, this man has come up with these characters in his head. I mean, how does he know this? And so they are being ushered in one by one. And this is just a few of the salutations. Du Bois says, my God, man, what is the meaning of this? The short man with the monocle, high hat, and a cane says with the sound of bewilderment in his voice, where am I? Why am I here? I have already had enough of this stupidity called life, and I am not sure I want to be a part of it again. Frederick, my dear William, you struggled long and hard to make some sense from this madness which has now come to be known as civilization. And I believe your help is now both essential and crucial for the undertaking I am attempting to create here tonight. At this time, the doorbell rings again. Frederick, Booker, glad you could make it. You know Dubois, please come in and join us. Cordial greetings are exchanged between the two reluctant visitors. Now, again, he had to know these people in order to
What
like
time is it?
It's about 7:20.
7:25.
Okay, so now we skip to, this is one thing that I thought. This is Frederick again. Stares at Booker, slight rising, anger quickly resolves to compassion. Allow me an attempt of explanation. With the exception of our people, the majority of tribes on the planet Earth are now armed. A small number of tribes that have become supernations have conceived weapons that are beyond relief. The destruction of Africa, that we paid so little attention to, has now developed into mass famine. Lands in Ethiopia that were bombed by Mussolini in your times can grow no food to feed the children today. The expansionist mentality of Europe continues to produce genocidal murder. Yesterday in Libya and Ghana, today in Palestine and Azania. But the gravest crime being committed is the extinguishing of the minds of our children everywhere on the planet. Consequently, my concluding determination is that war has been declared against our children. The white man in the past has been killing us slowly, but now that the essence of our power is starting to be defined by an ever-increasing black population, persons of white European stock have started to panic. Oh my God, I can't believe you wrote this in 1984. And this has come full circle. That's what's going on right now.
What's happening right now?
They've started to panic, and in their panic, they are devising ways to kill us faster than ever before. We as a people are not responding. Instead, we dream ourselves into a false sense of security as we cry out for acceptance and integration. Those of us who are then integrated into the white man's societal order are given the title of first black this and first black that. These few these few acceptions, I'm about to finish here if I can just scroll down a little bit further. These few exceptions are considered to be exceptional by the whites. These exceptional black people are then held up and promoted as success and progress for black people as a whole. Some of the few who have benefited from the meager progress have taken the place of the old plantation, overseers with a vigor that is more than shameful. And with that thought, I exonerate not even myself. As you all know, my record as an overseer speaks for itself. So that's the...
That was Frederick Douglass talking?
That's Frederick Douglass talking.
And you have to go through it carefully, step by step. So the only thing that we were trying to do was give people what they need, the premise that they need to educate themselves about what's going on so we can come up with a real plan to do something. Right now, everybody's just coming from a fairy tale. Y'all was talking about Egypt. That's a fairy tale. You got a bunch of folks running around here talking about the Negro in politics. That's a fairy tale. We've got to come up with some real strategies. And then somebody said, well, how you going to do that? What's a real strategy? A real strategy was what Amasia Walker's family came up with. A real strategy was what this boy Harrington over in Atlanta came up with. Spalding in North Carolina. These people, W. Clement Stone in Chicago. What's the guy's name in Birmingham? Y'all know him? He was the millionaire.
Yeah, I know. Had a radio station on.
Radio station, motel, insurance company.
Gaston.
A.G. Gaston. They had a strategy. Dr. T.R.M. Howard. S.B. Fuller. And then people ask me all the time, well, how you think they can make it? Wait a minute. They all knew each other.
That's what
Medgar Evers ran the insurance company and the SB Fuller Products Company down there in I said Medgar Evers.
Now what we don't, but what happens is we know Medgar Evers. He got shot in his driveway, and
That's
he was
all
a
you
civil
know about
rights
him.
advocate. But
all
we
I
don't know how he worked,
what
where
he
he worked, and
what
how
he was
made
doing
his
to be
living.
such a threat.
That's right, and how they were making money. And they were making enough money to put a whole community of people in position. We got somebody in here right now making soap. Well, that's how SB Fuller started his company. And SB Fuller became one of the richest people in Brownsville.
That's what I was trying to think of when we was talking about the Chicago Defender.
No, that's Robert Abbott. The Defender is Robert Abbott.
Did Fuller have a paper?
Yeah, he did. He had 2 newspapers, but in Chicago, he had the Fuller Company dealing with cosmetics,
Hair product.
hair products, and the skin products and soap. And then he turned around and he developed 47th Street, and the building that the 5 and 10 cent store was in 47th Street. That was S.B. Fuller's property. The Social Security office was in one of his properties. And the major thing that he did was he developed a Regal Theater.
And that was like Club Paradise. Yeah.
Called a theater.
Yeah. Well, that's where the Temptations first were introduced in Chicago. It was like what Club Paradise became in Memphis.
But only it was a real theater like the Orpheum.
Right. It was something.
Regal.
Yeah.
And the name was the Regal.
And you have to understand all these things.
Like the Apollo.
And see, black folks want to think that black folks ain't never had anything. No, man, there were banks in Brownsville. There were banks in New York. There were banks in the Bronx. Wait a minute. Right down the road here in Mississippi, there was a bank in Mountain Bayou, Mississippi. You can go downtown and you can see the building that was the Robert Church Bank. It's there. Right across from the old church where y'all be in the park every year.
Yeah.
That's Church Park. Well, right across the street, they used to, I don't know if this building is still sitting there, but that was a bank.
And that's where the Tri-State Defender was in that building.
Tri-State Defender was there eventually. And Tri-State Defender was one of Synstack's properties.
Johnson.
And Synstack, the son, started owning what the father had owned. The father was Robert Synstack Abbott. Are you following me? And once you start understanding this, then what do you mean black folks ain't never had anything? They had something. Now guess what? If they can have y'all thinking that black people have never had anything, guess what they've done to these children?
Controlling growth.
They've got them set up to where they'll never have anything. But if you can show them that they've been building and doing, they did more than anybody on the planet. And if now you can see how this has been done before, then guess what?
Do it again.
Children can do it again.
Even better.
Is that there she is. Hey girl, I couldn't see you. I felt you back there though. What's going on?